Hello friends, family, and other creatures of the sea. Welcome back to a high-level best of 3 StarCraft 2. Today here in the bottom left, spawning as our blue Terran player playing for the Shopify Rebellion, it is Beyond. And in the top right, playing for Twisted Minds, is of course Classic here, opening up with a standard gateway opener. It's Beyond opening up with nothing too weird yet either. Both of these players, of course, phenomenal in the respective matchup. I'm not entirely sure if I consider either of these the best at this matchup. I don't think Beyond is the best in TVP in the world. I think Clem, Maru, Cure probably, they can make a better case for themselves when it comes to claiming the TVP throne. Classic, I feel like both Max Specs and Hero have slightly better processors there, but it's definitely a kind of a top 3 TVP or top 4-ish, I guess, top 3, top 4 type of stuff. It's very, very high level. And the one thing I always appreciate about Classic, much more than I appreciate about other tosses, is that his openers, his build orders feel fairly simple, as he tries to keep it as simple as possible for himself. He isn't a player that goes absolutely wild with crazy harassment or some ingenious builds, the overly aggressive. No, he often plays pretty standard openers with a very simple game plan. For a long time, he exclusively played Stargate into Robotics Facility, following it up with Phoenix Colossus, which is really quite a simple type of setup to work with. You have a lot of vision. You have big, powerful units in the Colossus, especially since the latest Raven nerf. That is actually quite a viable way to play. I wonder if that's what he's going to be doing here as well. So far, no Warp Gate, so it does kind of indicate a Stargate opener, as he has his second pylon blocking this Reaper jump-up spot. Beyond, on the other hand, opening up with a double gas into Cyclone. Now, it's always... I have different minds on the double gas openers. Sometimes they feel and look very strong, other times they feel and look very weak. It is extremely dependent on the first 4.5 minutes whether this is going to be a good thing to play. Just really depending on the amount of damage that Beyond can do. So far it's going to get a worker kill, which is actually kind of big. I wonder if Beyond saw the Stargate. I bet he did, right? Yeah, he definitely did. No, he didn't. Oh, wow. Okay, so Beyond not catching the Stargate, doesn't quite know if it's going to be a Twilight Council first or a Stargate first. That is actually pretty frustrating. Tech Lab here is a follow-up. If this is going to be a tank, this could still go into like a bit of a push. Surprised to see a double adept move out here. This is kind of a wild play, honestly. And the second adept in some trouble as well here. Might actually end up falling, is gonna die. That is -2 adept. Battery needs to be constructed as a result. We don't have a robotics facility quite yet. I think this was a major mess up here coming out of Classic, who now throws down 2 batteries, has his first Phoenix out, probably should use it for scouting, as well as building another robotics facility either in the natural or over in the main base. I honestly would prefer just using the natural position. Yeah, needs to be so careful though. It doesn't have any real units, isn't scouting either here with the Phoenix. As a result, there's no serious information. Surprised to see him lose these 2 adepts for free like he did. I think that was a pretty big blunder. In my mind, if you're opening with a Stargate and you're gonna get a Phoenix out, your scouting should most likely be done with the Phoenix. Adept should be staying at the tower here. So you can see your opponent if they go for a move out. And if they come out with a Cyclone, you can see that as well. But it's so common to have a Cyclone at that point in the game. I'm confused and surprised as to, Classic's movement there. Gonna see a tank drop, as well as the Marine Cyclone move out. Phoenixes are gonna try to do some backstabbing. Might be capable of getting 1 or 2 SCVs. That's some energy that you're losing, though, that you can't use in the upcoming fight. Double batteries right next to one another. Observer as the first unit. The moment you see no units in the natural mineral line, I think you can assume that there's a minor push-out happening. 4 Stalkers are out. That is a decent Stalker count, as the second gate is turning into a Warp Gate right now as well. But without an Immortal, this could still be tricky. Double tanks here in the setup. Let's see how Beyond is going to do this. He's going to siege up at a distance. At least that's what it feels like. Sees the Stalkers, moves in forward. We get a couple of big shots here on the tank. One tank's going to get taken out, as 2 Stalkers will fall before the fight truly starts. 2 more Stalkers are going to get warped in here. Battery stays alive for now as well. And that means that this battery can also just end up dying most likely. Yeah, losing all of those Stalkers, pretty painful here. Phoenix is now returning back home as the first Immortal pops out. But that I think is pretty much going to be it, as there's not enough units here right now for Classic. And Vian gonna take game number 1 with a very rapid push. 3rd CC behind it. It never was truly necessary. So he picks up the first game. Alrighty, game 2 here is going to be played on Oceanborn. Classic seems to be really keen on walling this, by the way, which I don't mind. I'm happy with walls. It's one of those things where I feel like people's opinions change on it every couple of months. When I was talking with MaxPex, he says he likes it on certain maps. I like it, but I also hate it at the same time. So the problem with walling like this is that very often against like a quick Cyclone drop, for example, with like 6 Marines, or like a Cyclone attack with 6 Marines, you can lose this pylon and lose one of your main production structures. Very often you can't really defend anything unless you have a battery there. So then you need a high ground battery. If you have your Stargate positioned here, it means it's going to get unpowered as well. So it just feels really, honestly, kind of sucky often to have that wall. But at the same time, it is so nice to be capable of denying Reapers from going in. Classic there going for an assassination attempt. Does not quite get it. As Bian oversaturating both of his gases, 4 out of 3 workers. This is really sloppy, and this is costing him a lot of cash there. That was actually a really sloppy play. He continues to mine gas, which is also sloppy. Bian with an extremely poor opener here, efficiency-wise. And we're gonna see that come into play soon when he'll try to build a CC and simply won't have the money in time yet. Bad opener here for our Terran player. Just purely based on the fact that he was oversaturating these gases. These Terran builds are very precise when it comes to pulling in and out of gas. Making sure that you have like the optimal amount of resource mining for the perfect time. So usually the moment you finish the factory, or the moment you start the factory, you pull 2 or 3 workers out of gas, depending on how quick you want your Stargate or your Starport to be. So we're now going to see this command center go down about 3 seconds too late. Or maybe 2 seconds too late. Doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it's still sloppy and not necessary. Because that extra gas earlier on doesn't really do very much for him. Because he's going to need here. Look at this. He's going to need to build a depot now anyway. So you're going to build a depot before Starport anyway. So it's just sloppy. There's really no purpose to it, and that was a mistake. Sometimes people make these mistakes. And then I'll get a comment or an email like, actually, you just wanted more gas. Like, no, actually, you just made a mistake. And that is a normal thing to happen. I'm not saying that Bian is a noob. I'm just saying he made a mistake. And that's completely okay. You know, people make mistakes all the time. So do pro gamers. Couple of seconds delay on that CC. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but every little bit always matters. Battery being produced here blindly. Once again with the Phoenix start. I think the kind of the enlightened way of playing Phoenixes. Oh, wow. It's actually following a bit of Stalker. Is to get the first Phoenix without Chrono Boost and then the second Phoenix with a Chrono Boost. Getting a second Stalker. What the heck? Getting 2 Stalkers means you get a delay on the second Phoenix if you want to have an early Robo as well. So, to me this feels like Classic doesn't actually want to get a high Phoenix count necessarily. He just wants to not die. Stalkers allow you to stay alive much easier. And the fast Robo also allows you to not die. Blind Battery. It really feels like that Classic changed his plan from last game due to the result of that. Although, I feel like a lot of that had to do with the fact that he lost his first 2 adepts pretty much for free. Maybe we have a different reading of that game. And he says, hey, even with those adepts, I would have struggled against this push, so I want to change it up. Beyond here is... just exploration mission, maybe? Making sure there's no Zerg on this planet. Like a campaign mission, you know, where the Zerg and Protoss are there. He's going for the bonus. He's going for the side quest. He's going for the side quest. Give your Marines some fresh air in the bottom left side in the first 5 minutes. And you just tick that off. Gonna get some bonus money to spend back in the ship. Can get some more upgrades for his units. Sensor tower that gives you 20% damage increase or something like that. Liberator now is being sent across the map. So this is very similar to the previous game, except in the previous game it was a Marine tank push with just a single Cyclone for initial air control. This time it's going to be a Marine Cyclone push Also no medevac, but just straight Liberator. So I think this hits just slightly faster, slightly quicker. And I think a lot of this is going to depend on how well Classic is going to defend the Liberator in the main base. I don't think Classic is going to die here, but the Liberator in the main base could deal some serious damage. Okay, first Immortal gets a kill there on the Cyclone. Liberator sieges up. It's going to be 5 kills at least, maybe even 6 here. Ugh, that's quite a few kills there. As Beyond pulls ahead in the worker supply as well. 42 to 38. Third CC on the way. Double E-base being thrown down as well. And now there is a little bit of a scary moment here coming out for the Terran, where there's no bunker. Tank is, well, about to finish. This is a serious army, and on top of that we have 3 lifts available. Well, we have more than 3 lifts available, but 3 simultaneous lifts could deny a lot of damage output here. Tank still stuck in the main base. This bunker's not actually going to finish up either. Bunker's going to get targeted down. There's a Colossus on the way behind this. We have a force shield on the ramp, which almost feels like a mistake here. Tank still gets the siege up. And I do believe that this is going to get pushed back. Immortal tanking a lot of damage. Feels like a mistake. Gets him kiting back, snipes that Cyclone, and will piss off again. So despite the initial loss in workers, I think Classic kind of made up for that by clearing quite a bit of his opponent's army here. We see resources lost in favor of Classic. Classic up about 20 supply as well. He's going to be down in upgrades. He's going to be down in eco for at least a little bit longer. But when it comes to the army, he's actually looking pretty powerful. He's gonna pick off a couple more Marines here as well. Could now go for 1 or 2 SCVs as well. He's going to utilize every bit of energy here on these Phoenixes. And that's exactly what you want to be doing in this type of case. No extra Phoenixes being produced, by the way, which is rare. We're just gonna stick with the 3 that we have. Charge or blink is the question. I'd personally say blink. It feels correct here. Getting blink. I know that there's Phoenix harassment going on, but this is more important. And I swear he should have been... Okay, charge. I don't mind charge. I really don't. I feel like charge often is much better against higher tank counts. Well, to me it seems obvious here that it's just going to be a single tank. I think it should have been obvious to Classic because he scouted the reactor here on the factory. If you're... Oh... Ah, I've seen Classic do this before. Where was it that I saw this? I want to say it was against Clem in DreamHack Atlanta. So last, was that December or late November? I think it was December. Yeah, it was mid-December where we saw this, where I saw this for the first time at least. I think Classic probably had been playing it before already, so if I had paid attention, could have seen it before. It dealt quite a bit of damage with these Phoenixes. 8 SCV kills total. So basically what he's doing here, he's saying, hey, I'm going to get quite a bit of gas, and I'm not going to go for a kill move. Instead, I'm going to transition into really fast carriers. Needs to start his +1 at some point as well. And then I can't recall what his follow-up is going to be. Does he go into Disruptors from here? Last time I saw it, I remember seeing Stalkers initially. Like a lot of Blink Stalkers, and then following up those Stalkers with, I want to say it was Storm. That seems slightly unrealistic. Beyond is also setting up for a double drop here. The Mothership gets constructed. It is so rare to see a Mothership rush versus Terran. Especially with this setup. This is such an uncommon way of playing as he loses his Prism. Will need to cancel his own forward base. No, it's gonna split off. Okay, gets the hold for now at least. There's 2 Immortals with this army as well, so that should be fine. Super Battery helping out. Lots of workers are gonna be going down though. We still don't have any air weapon upgrades either, and I think that is probably a bit of a mistake here. Out of Classic, who's going to have his forward base but doesn't have the workers to even saturate 3 bases properly with the gases. He's currently on 60 workers. Although the main base is mined out, he's still lacking some serious saturation in the natural. When it comes to these assimilators, we have a couple of workers at the fort already. We're gonna need to start pumping boys right now. Like, just you need to get a lot of workers out in a short amount of time if you want to have a serious impact in this game. Beyond's continuing with his production as he's going up to 8 barracks, 2 upgrades. We still have no upgrades here whatsoever for these carriers. So these carriers are going to stay upgradeless, and they're not actually that great against Marine Marauder Ghost until they get some type of upgrades here. Ooh, that's a big stim forward. Here come the carriers. We'll show their face, rear their ugly head. Ooh, those mines actually dealt a lot of damage to both the interceptors as well as the marauders, but perhaps the marauders are not the big deal here. It seems like these marines, that's what's going to truly matter, is marine stimming forward. And with the 1-1 upgrades, it's going to be good enough to just shoot through these carriers, shoot down that mothership potentially as well. Another carrier here is going to get taken out as one more shows up. Left side is going to get cleared as the army supply for Beyond is honestly extremely low, scarily low in a way. Like a counterattack seems somewhat viable, somewhat possible here. It's gonna need to clear these mines first though. Classic that is. At Classic, the problem for Classic here is very simple in my opinion. And that's that he doesn't have so many workers. He's fighting against someone at 86 workers. Here comes a counterattack. He needs to. He absolutely needs to. And this observer needs to help out here clearing these mines and then just go for a straight up counterattack. It's the only thing he can do, no? Is there a world in which Classic is down 30 workers, goes back home at this point and says, well, time for a macro game now? I don't think there's a world. I think this was a blunder almost. I'm not sure if he could have cleared his opponent, but I know for sure that if you're going to be fighting with 0-0 carriers against 3-3 or 3-2 units, as well as ship weapons level 1 coming out of the Terran right now, double starport production with reactors, like, the setup for Beyond is so ridiculously good. There's no 5th base quite yet, but nothing is stopping him from taking it right now. There's plenty of cash in the bank. We have enough gas as well. We're going up to 8. There comes the 5th. I'd love to see a 3rd starport. I often feel that Terran players are too afraid of just kind of trickling in starports in this type of game. Where it's like, hey, it's okay to get a 3rd starport a bit earlier before you can necessarily super afford it, you know? I think that's an absolutely okay thing to do. Marauder count surprisingly low, by the way. This consists of a lot of Marines, and that might just be the saving grace here for Classic, who still has a Colossus count, of course. We shouldn't forget about that. Blink not done yet. This is also why I said why I would think Blink with this type of composition makes more sense. And that's what I've seen Classic do before, is because you want to be capable of taking out these Vikings from a distance so that the Vikings can just get these free pot shots off on the carriers or the mothership. Here comes a time warp. It's going to take out 3 Vikings for free pretty much. We still have no upgrades on the carriers, which is absolutely blowing my mind in a bad way. Someone threw a grenade on my head. Like, this is not a good type of blowing my mind. It seems so obvious to me that air weapon upgrade would be a huge benefit here for these carriers. I mean, you're sitting with 8 interceptors, all of them individually benefiting from an upgrade. We're now going to research Storm, I think. It's the only thing that makes sense. Like, you can just add in 5 Archons if your opponent has Ghost already. As we're going to get a quad drop towards the far right side. Classic with very high army supply. 184 supply overall, 113 army supply. If he gets to max out, gets to sit back, this almost feels viable. He also continues expanding at an extraordinary pace given his terrible economic circumstances. Yeah, 4 more gateways popping out over here as well. As there's no cannons in the net, there's no vision on the right side. This is what we call a pretty major issue. Split off here is good. Is it good enough? I think the answer will be yes. At the same time, we have an attack moving in forward. Mothership perhaps in trouble. Needs to be so careful. It's already fairly low. Big blink forward. It's gonna snipe one of those last medevacs. As the medevac count is currently... Is it actually 1? Okay, right, it's 5 because there's still a bunch on the right side. But it is extremely low. And this is something that you gotta take serious as Beyond here for these... kind of the sustain of your bioforce. Drop in the main base, also taking out a couple more workers here. It's these types of small attacks that can deal so much damage. It's kind of insidious, where it's like, oh, it's just a Marine and a Marauder. But if they kill 7-8 workers and you only have 60 workers, that can be a pretty big deal. And Beyond is being very, very good with these 2 units. He's just picking them up, lifting them, dealing pretty much the maximum amount of damage there. Good efficiency on those drops. The natural has been completely taken out. And I love, by the way, what Classic is doing here. Is that he's just staying very patient. He's like, hey, The one advantage I'm going to have in these upcoming fights is the fact that my army value, as well as my army supply, is going to be much higher than my opponent due to me having a lower worker count. And that is absolutely true. Beyond also realizing that and says, hey, my higher worker count allows me to build static defense, which doesn't cost supply and does allow me to fight better defensively. Then, with better reinforcements, I hopefully can win a fight. So both players here honestly playing a very optimal... What is that? Did he just recall 110 fire? Well, both players playing a very optimal strategy here in their situation. I really love that. Do we already have the advanced ballistics? We don't quite yet. We also are not seeing any extra ship weapons or vehicle plating upgrades out of Beyond. I do believe that to be a pretty major mistake. Storm is available. Here come the carriers. Invisibility gets used. It's kind of pointless because there are scans. On top of that, we also, of course, have the turrets nearby providing detection. As the carriers are struggling getting their interceptors out, 9 more stalkers getting warped in. Upgrades heavily in favor here of Beyond, but the turrets are not available here. Decent zoning storm, as I think this base is gonna end up falling. Another good storm. This one actually hitting a bunch of units here. I don't think there's any EMPs available anymore. Oh, that was the last EMP and also the last storm. More stalkers now popping in. Good blink towards the side. Mothership falls, but carriers are still alive. As Beyond here is being pushed back, Classic is crawling slowly but surely towards perhaps a victory. 63 workers to 62. I'm not so sure if Classic can just move home though. He's gonna need to take out this base at least. He does have a 5th. 24 workers have fallen on the side of Beyond. This base is gonna go down. This has gone so freaking well here for Classic. But now he doesn't quite have the splash anymore. Loses a lot of stalkers here just standing in these liberator zones for no reason whatsoever. What a blunder by Classic. He saw those libs just siege up. Didn't pay attention for 5-6 seconds to his main army. And yeah, then 15 stalkers disappear real quick. Carriers have been deleted out of this game right now. Still, by the way, only with +1, which is just so odd because that transition came 8 minutes into the game. I can't stress enough how late Classic has been with these upgrades. And especially against bio units with +2 armor here. They should have been dealing so much more damage. And they weren't. They really weren't. Now here comes a Stalker Zealot attack, but that's not gonna work. As this Bioforce is way too strong. +2 attack for these gateway units against the 3-2 upgrades. Stormers are, well, not quite available yet. Gonna morph into an Archon, but that's not going to be good enough as Classic here is bleeding out. It's gonna try for some big disruptor shots, but that should not be capable of working here. Can we get them? No, of course not. Beyond's micro just a little bit too solid here, a bit too stellar. It's gonna get a good EMP there on the final disruptor. Lands the Vikings. GG gets called. After a really 6-second game in this series, Beyond does take the series with a 2-0 victory. Fun style though out of Classic, and it's something I definitely want to try. Just a low initial Phoenix count and spending a lot of those minerals and gas that usually goes into Phoenix straight for carriers. Didn't quite end up working out. I think a part of that is definitely the lack of those upgrades that we saw. I mean, this is just not a realistic way of fighting, right? You can't just say, hey, I'm going to get a single attack upgrade on my main source of DPS while my opponent is on 3-2. Like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially if that transition comes so early. But that is truly going to be it for me today. Thanks all so much for watching. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll see all of you next time for a new video. Thanks so much for watching, and bye-bye.